The picturesque Finger Lakes region of central New York, home to some of the Empire State's finest vineyards. But once a year, the peace and serenity is shattered by the thunderous roar of race engines as NASCAR's finest come here to compete at historic Watkins Glen International. ESPN welcomes you to our NASCAR Sprint Cup Series coverage and NASCAR Nationwide Series coverage, by the way, for the weekend here at Watkins Glen International Raceway in the Finger Lakes region of central New York. There has been rain in the area most of the morning, which wiped out NASCAR Sprint Cup Series practice, and now it has altered the schedule completely. NASCAR Nationwide Series qualifying will be on the air tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. NASCAR Sprint Cup Series Happy Hour, which will be the only laps. These cars will be on the racetrack tomorrow at 1:30. You'll see it at 1:30 Eastern Time. Over on ABC, NASCAR Nationwide Series Racing at 2:30 Eastern Time. And, of course, Sunday, 1 o'clock, our coverage of the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series event on ESPN. And because NASCAR Sprint Cup qualifying was postponed or canceled, they have lined up by order of points, of owners' points. The starting grid, here's how they'll start on Sunday. Kyle Busch and Dale Earnhardt Jr. in row 1. Carl Edwards, you see him moving up to third in the points. Will start inside of row 2. Some of the road course ringers that wanted to get in the field here, like Boris said, have to go home once again, guys. And but you got some good guys. P.J. Jones, a road course racer, finished 4th here a couple of years ago. A.J. Allmendinger, back inside row 19.
Patrick Carpentier, and then a number of the guys that obviously are going to have to start in the very back. Marcus Ambrose, they're going to be starting dead last, so that'll be interesting to watch on Sunday.
Max Pappas is back there with him. And there's some of these guys that didn't get in, like you said, Boris said, but there's a lot of these ringers that are in the race, and it'll be a lot of fun to watch on Sunday.
It should make it. I mean, when you got all these guys who are really good road racers starting in the back of the pack, and you got the guys who are regulars in the series who are going to have limited practice here on Saturday, that should make it fun early on.
Yeah, it should make it fun and interesting to watch and see just how good they are, because, you know, we could talk about pit strategy like we do a lot of places and talk about, well, we can do this or that. Everybody knows the pit strategy here on a road course, so you can't do that, Andy.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can't just like come in and get 2 tires and steal track position at a road course, because it is so set ahead of time. These crew chiefs will set out and lay out how far they can go on fuel, and they work the race backwards, so the pit strategy is already set. But these guys, a lot of those ringers, don't have a lot to lose, and so they'll be coming up through the pack, and they'll be driving hard, so it'll be a very exciting thing to watch.
With the Sprint Cup field set, they've opened up a track for the NASCAR Nationwide Series cars. Remember, these cars can run on wet or dry tires, and right now they are in the dry mode because the track has finally gotten dry. But a week ago, it wasn't the case. They had to use the very, very wet tires at Montreal.
Sparks are flying on the track, and the sparks are flying off in the distance. And the rain is falling. Get your DVRs running, folks. For the first time ever in NASCAR history, one of the top 3 series will race on rain tires. Marcus Ambrose has checked out on this field by 8 seconds.
Marcus Ambrose, your leader, having trouble.
He goes too fast into pit lane, has to serve a pass-through penalty. Despite all this, Marcus is in 3rd.
Oh, it's over? They just said it's over.
Congratulations are going to go to Ron Fellows. He picks up his 4th career Nationwide Series win.
Ron Fellows took the win at Montreal. He's won 3 times here, and of course his 4th overall. But that, take a look at the points shuffle here. 23 races are in the books. Clint Boyer holding on to a 168-point lead. Carl Edwards now moving in the 2nd spot. There's Keselowski back. Jason Leffler continuing to move up, now 9th overall in the point standings. Well, what did they learn from racing in the rain last week, and how do you get better at being a rain racer? For more, let's head down to Jamie Little.
Well, Doc, that was certainly the motto last week. They were going off the fly. The drivers, the teams, they were adjusting to the weather conditions, and they came up with some things off the cuff, so they showed up this weekend prepared. As we saw, Carl Edwards, he pulled out the old Swiffer. Chris Ellis from his team came up with this idea just so he can get that condensation off the windshield, both on the inside and the outside. Also, the windshield wipers. We've never seen them run too many things in my hand at one time. a windshield wiper run. So they all showed up today, all had them sitting here. You could see they just attach right here. So all the engineers and crew chiefs went to work finding the best setup. They even had the cars on rain tires because it rained all morning here. And of course now the sun is shining, so they all had to make a few adjustments. And they're looking at running on a dry track tomorrow, Doc, right now. That's what they're saying with the weather. So all is good, and had some damage over here on the number 2. We're going to follow up with that in just a few moments.
Well, Jamie, certainly the teams are prepared for the rain this weekend, but I had a lot of people ask me last weekend, how did the teams go to Montreal with the gear that they needed to put on their car, the windshield wipers and such? So I went and asked NASCAR, and they gave me this. This is actually the entry form. And here on the entry form, it states that in the Nationwide Series at road course races, all teams should be prepared at all times to run qualifying practice or the race in wet conditions. So this verbiage is stated on all road races here in the Nationwide Series. And you just saw some props that Jamie Little was using there. Another prop that the teams have used are simple plastic bags. This is one that the number 5, Dale Earnhardt Jr., is using or has on hand for his car to put the radio in. And on that number 5 car, the car that went to victory lane last weekend in Montreal, they actually moved the radio to the right side of the driver's seat. And that's because they had some problems with it getting wet last weekend. So Dale Earnhardt Jr., that number 5 car, looking for 2 in a row for Junior Motorsports. And guys, that is the same car that went to victory lane last weekend in Montreal. Doc?
Shannon, Jamie, thank you very much. And again, NASCAR Nationwide Series does have the wet weather tires here. Goodyear's brought 600 of those tires here. And if the conditions change here over the next little while in this practice, they could call them all in and put the wet tires on. Now, here's the rules. The track has to be completely wet to put those groove tires on, because if it's not, it'll wear them out. So they said they would possibly practice. DJ, I know years ago NASCAR let some of the drivers run some laps here in the wet with rain tires on a cup car. Were you a part of that group?
I was part of the group that didn't go out there, but Andy could probably talk more. I think his car actually went out. No, that was actually in 1999, and we were sitting there with a points lead of a little over 200, and I just didn't see the need in taking my good road race car out there and possibly doing something that I had no idea about. They wanted you to go out there in the rain, and as we see them working on Clint's Warriors car here, I just didn't. We didn't partake. I think probably less than 10 cars went out and participated in that. But last week was a great show, and as long as everybody knows that's what they're going to do, it's good to do that. But our points leader here has already had an excursion. It looks like had a little problem with maybe the 05 car.
You're working on both sides of this thing. Uh-oh.
Oh,
Yeah, he got cut off getting into this bus stop area. Chicane. I think he did a pretty good job there of not getting hurt too bad.
That's Bernie Lamar in the 05 at the end of the back straightaway, and got some damage on the fender there, which they're going to push out. Jamie?
Well, Clint Boyer was just in front of the car. He's working on some things, as you could see. A little frustrated incident out there. They turned about 3 to 4 laps out on the track before that happened. Front and rear damage. Now he's in the mix here with his guys, trying to help them out.
One thing that's a little different. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hey, Clint, what exactly happened out there?
I don't know. Whoever's in a 05 needs a spotter in a bus stop. I just got underneath of him, and he obviously didn't know I was down there and turned across the front end, and then didn't. I guess he thought that I was trying to spin him out, and he got in the rear end, but oh well.
First look at the track. How is it? Is it completely dry at this point?
Yeah, it's dry. It's just, unfortunate we already tore up.
Are you guys going to be okay? Any internal damage?
Yeah, I don't know. The front fender's obviously the major thing. It's just, it's unfortunate. These guys work too hard on these cars and making them look good, and, stupidity out there tearing them up.
All right, guys, tough break for Clint Boyer, of course, trying to take advantage of the extra laps that they didn't get in the Cup side this time of day, guys.
Here's the 05 car back over in the Nationwide garage. You see the damage on his car. And DJ, what about spotters? You and Andy, what about spotters here? How many do you normally use at Watkins Glen?
Well, we usually have 2 is what we had here, and that's in that area. There is a spotters area right there at the bus stop, and I don't know if maybe in practice they just don't run or have both spotters. They probably just have one up on the roof here to start finish line.
yeah, a lot of times they won't. We use somebody usually up coming out of the S's to where they could look there and down the back straightaway, and you can see there are spotters there. there that are right there at the chicane and could be helped. But not everyone is required to have someone there. You just have to have one around the racetrack somewhere, and we'll utilize about 3 spotters around here in the race if at all possible. So you can see normally you'll have someone on the front straightaway as we look at our track map here. Down the front stretch, if you can have someone there helping, and sometimes they have to be on the inside to help you down in turn 1. Very important part of the racetrack right here, having someone to help you there to get you cleared. A lot of things happen there, and they happen in a hurry. And then we'll put someone, as we start up through the S's, through turns 2 through 4 here, up to the back straightaway, we'll have someone there that can actually see things happening there, because the S is really, if something happens there, you really have to be aware quickly, because there's nowhere to go there, and it can really be a big help. And then someone back here in the inner loop to help out as cars get tangled up there and things start happening quickly. They can help you get slowed down if there's a car blocking the racetrack or something. So again, you can utilize at least 3 as we come out of there and back towards the start-finish line. You usually don't have anybody over in this area because it's pretty open, and you can kind of see as you come down through there what's happening. And if something does happen, they'll usually get off the racetrack as we come to the last corner and then back to the front straightaway.
I guess you could use a spotter in every corner. How many spotters would you need here if you did that, though?
Well, it depends on how many corners you decide are out here. We have a discrepancy in all of that, but personally, I could get by with about 3 or 4, because you could utilize some that take up a couple, but yeah, I'm not going to get Andy. You're just trying to start things, but that's we have a discrepancy here as to what these corners are called, and each team's a little different. NASCAR has their what they look at, and then we'll call it something along those lines, and then the drivers and teams, because they look at the actual number of corners and what they're talking about as we see the guys get ready to go back to practice.
Yeah, there are the spotters up on top of the main grandstand area, high atop. They'll be able to see the cars and get ready to send them back out. It's called a 2.45-mile, 11-turn road course. If you include the 4 turns on the inner loop, some of the drivers consider that it's just a 7-turn course. Our coverage of the NASCAR Nationwide Series final practice is being brought to you by Aleve. Good moves start here, Aleve.com. And by Orbitz. Visit Orbitz.com today and save. Skies clearing up here. We've had rain off and on most of the morning. There's been no on-track activity until now. The NASCAR Sprint Cup cars tried to go out and were lined up on pit road and had to go back to the garage area when the rains came in. If you just joined our coverage, NASCAR Sprint Cup qualifying, which was to air right now, has been canceled. They have lined up the field by points, which means that Kyle Busch and Dale Earnhardt Jr. will be in row 1. This is NASCAR Nationwide Series practice.
This car's coming down into turn 1 here. A high braking area, but you need to carry a lot of speed through here. It is a passing opportunity into and out of this corner. We see Matt Kenseth there in the 17 car this weekend.
And I think the key here is once you make this turn right here is to stay wide open all the way up through these, what we call the S's in the back straightaway, till you can get to that inner loop. Is that can these guys, obviously these guys can probably do that. Can they do that with the Sprint Cup cars, Dale?
Yeah, you actually can, and that's where you can make up a lot of time if you can get your car good enough to go up through those S's wide open. Once you get through turn 2 and you get back to the gas and make that shift, then if you can go wide open through there, you can make a lot of time and helps your, obviously, the back straightaway speed.
Yeah, to me that is one of the most important parts of the racetrack, to make speed and lap time. If you can get up that back straightaway and through those S's, you can make up, half, 3/4 of a second. You can gain or lose right there.
Yeah.
Some of the cars already on the track getting some practice. Let's update the 5 car back in the garage area. Shannon?
Yeah, Doc, it's all about springs right now for this number 5 car. These guys are going to work changing the springs. Dale Earnhardt Jr. says he feels a chatter. He said, I've never felt a chatter here at this track. He won here in '99, so they're working on that car, trying to fix it for Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Talking about a chatter, he's talking about the front tires when he's trying to turn into the corners and they're just not gripping, and they have a chatter feel to them. Is that right?
Dale Earnhardt Jr. has been successful here. Shannon mentioned his victory in 1999, June 27th to be exact. Coming down to get his first ever win in the NASCAR Nationwide Series on a road course. And it happened right here at Watkins, Glen. He beat Ron Fellows. Well, when you beat Ron Fellows on a road course, you have done something. Earnhardt Jr. celebrating in victory lane. And the irony is it was Ron Fellows who drove this car for Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Rick Hendrick last week at Montreal to victory lane. Here's a crowd down there around the trailer. What are they looking at, Jamie?
Well, they're looking at the only timing and scoring monitor that's working down here in the garage area. Normally, throughout the garage, they all have their own timing and scoring. They can see where their driver is if he's making gains. Well, it's not working because of the weather. They're all staring at this one NASCAR hauler timing and scoring, so pretty interesting.
The way NASCAR gets that out to the teams is over a radio frequency that they transmit from the tower. This particular monitor is the only hardwired monitor in the garage area. They run a wire down there to that trailer, and that's why these guys are down there looking at that one.
Yeah, and this is always as important, if not the most important. When you get on a road course, it's hard to tell as a driver. If you slip just a little bit, if you lost a tenth of a second, you might not actually know it and be able to feel it. So the crew being able to tell you your exact lap time and relay that back to you really helps you. As we can see, Marcus Ambrose has found his way around here. He's the quickest car on the racetrack so far. But it's very important as a driver, if you're going to get out there and making 2 or 3 laps at a time, that they're able to get that communication to you and let you know exactly what you ran, so that the next lap you can say, okay, this is where I can pick it up a little bit, or this is where I lost it on the previous lap.
It's hard for the crews also to time by hand on top of the trucks because you can't see very well, and it's really hard to pick your car out from on top of the hauler.
Picking cars out, here's the 48 of Jimmy Johnson, and you think it is a Cup car, but it's actually Jimmy Johnson in the Nationwide Series, making only his second start of the year. And guess where Jimmy Johnson is on the speed charts right now?
Just went number 1. Marcus Ambrose was the number 1 car, and Jimmy Johnson just knocked him off. He's being held up here in this fast part of the racetrack we were talking about by a slow car.
And that could happen up through those S's. There's really only one lane that you can go up through there. And if you get behind somebody up through there, doesn't matter how much better your car might be. You pretty much just have to wait till you get to that back straightaway and get to the inner loop to make that pass.
31, that's Kenny Hendrick, who is a pretty good road racer, but doesn't have the equipment that Jimmy Johnson has here. By the way, the car Johnson is driving is co-owned by Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Rick Hendrick. It's out of the Junior Motorsports stable. So Jimmy making only his second start of his career, and he opted to run this race because he wanted to get laps on a road course.
Yeah, I saw Jimmy after the Pocono race last week as we were waiting to leave out of Pocono, and I just asked him, I said, I know you added a couple of races here. You know, what's your reasoning? Why are you doing this? And he said simply because at Watkins to Glen, he said, I haven't won yet. I need more laps there. And he said, I felt like that was the best time to get it. Even though the cars are different, just getting laps there and finding a rhythm. And then at Bristol in the truck is the other thing. He said, I just need more laps. You can see him smoke the tires a little bit, getting on the brakes hard down into turn 1. And then it's the end of the gears here and getting to turn 2. And when you get to this point, you want to be wide open from this point all the way up through the S's.
Jimmy Johnson, I've got to believe, has a vivid memory of turn 1 in the early years when he was driving in the NASCAR Nationwide Series. Back then, the Busch Series. Watch Jimmy Johnson. Whoa! Doesn't slow down, doesn't stop, and
oh, well, that just takes my breath every time I see that.
That was the most incredible thing I'd ever seen at that time.
Driving for Herzog Motorsports, and he climbs out and waves to the fans, and they have changed that area a lot since then.
I don't know if anything would slow down because he didn't have any brakes. So
he wasn't even on the ground.
Yeah, that's right. So it's hard to stop. Brakes aren't much good in there, are they?
Two-time champion. He's been so good in the NASCAR Sprint Cup car, but remarkably, he has one career victory and one only in the NASCAR Nationwide Series, that coming at Chicagoland. He runs very infrequently there. He had a 10th place finish at Lowe's Motor Speedway back in May, making only his second start of the year in this series.
Well, if you're going to pick a series to be good in, he picked the right one, didn't he?
Yeah.
We told you there were the road course ringers here. How about this guy, Mad Max Pappas, driving for Rusty Wallace?
He's 4th quick on the speed charts right now. Had a good race last week in Montreal, and he's got a lot of road racing experience. Shannon?
Yeah, Max Pappas in that 64 on that. This is the run. He went out, he came in, and he made some changes to that car. I told you it was all about front springs down here. Well, he was another driver who opted for some different front springs. Said that the nose was just going down too quickly on that number 64 car. So they went back out. I'm still trying to get an update on what the car condition is right now. As you can see, Max Pappas out there on pit road on his way back into the garage area.
You see all these people changing these front springs, and most of the racetracks that we go to are ovals, and you want to run the softest front springs really possible to get the front end down. But I've noticed most of these road race cars really like to have front springs in them so they can get this car to switch direction, and it doesn't dive so hard when they hit the brakes.
Yeah, it's always interesting talking to these guys that are actually the road racers. It's the feel of the car that they want. And as you said, Andy, in talking to them, they want some front spring. They're going to drive it a long way down to the corner. They're going to get on the brakes hard, so they need that stability there. But they have a certain place that they want that front end of that car. And it doesn't matter what kind of car they're driving. They have a feel that they're looking for, and they're very good in relaying that information to the crew.
Max Pappas, by the way, is our in-race reporter, and we'll be talking to him on the pace laps throughout the afternoon here. And Dale Jarrett will be asking him questions about, what's happening on the track. He qualified on the outside front row last week in Montreal. This race could certainly have somewhat of an international flavor. Look, drivers from Australia, Marcos Ambrose, Patrick Carpentier. From Canada, Dario Franchitti. Well, back in NASCAR, he is, of course, the Indy 500 winner. Max Pappas from Italy, and Antonio Perez from Mexico. Lots of road course ringers, guys that really get it done, turning left and right, practicing right now in the NASCAR Nationwide Series. Just 5 races remain until the chase begins, and of course the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series will be here at Watkins Glen. Our coverage beginning with NASCAR Countdown Sunday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Alan Bestwick, Brad Doherty, Rusty Wallace, and then coverage 90 laps here. Some great road racers, some NASCAR champions on the historic Watkins Glen International Road Course. Tony Stewart has won 4 times. The last 6 times we have been here, but has yet to win this year. Now working a 35 race winless streak. Points leader Clint Boyer back on the racetrack after the damage on the front and rear. They've gotten that beaten back out and repaired.
This is an important race for him. He's seen his lead in the championship standings shrink a little bit, and he knows how much of a wild card race this can be. I mean, so many cars are going to finish on the lead lap. You can't have any problems or you're going to lose a ton of points.
He's lost 34 points the last 4 races, and now Carl Edwards has taken over second spot. In fact, Edwards has gained 86 points in the last 3 events, so he knows Carl is coming.
Yeah, and let's put a positive spin on this. If he can have a good day, then he can gain a lot more points and get him a bigger lead. So I didn't mean to say, but he does have to make sure that he gets the practice time in, that they have a good race car, because he would like to kind of stop that and get his points lead back up. Yeah.
By the way, he did a nice job at Montreal, come up in the back of the pack to finish 8th, talking about Clint Boyer. Marcus Ambrose led the most laps at Montreal, led 27 of 48 laps. Looked like it was his race to lose, and got that speeding penalty coming in and exiting pit road in the rain. Cost him a chance at victory. Ended up finishing 3rd. Well, he can drive a road course.
Been very impressed. I mean, he just really gets the job done on these road courses. He is fun to watch. He goes fast and makes it look pretty smooth. I mean, for the most part. You see him coming down the front straightaway here, hard on the brakes right there. See the car move a little bit. But this guy really gets the job done on these road courses, Andy.
He really does, and he's going to run the Cup race this week too. And I think he's really taken to that Cup car quite well. With no more experience than he has in it. But his is, he might be one of the best road racers on the racetrack in this series. He just hasn't got a win to show for it yet. See, he's screaming up here up the back stretch going into this interlude. It's a real critical part of the racetrack also. You see how these guys cut through these, across these curves. They use a lot of the curves through this section to straighten out how the corner, that they make that corner.
You can make your car not get any more upset. Watch his car go across this, because that's actually pretty rough. You can see the car come off the ground. And Andy, if you can get your car set to where you've got the tires on the ground that much and the car's not really moving around a lot, versus, let's watch Carl Edwards here.
Carl catches just a little bit more of that inside curb there, makes this cut across here, and his car is pretty soft. And you see, oh man, he hits that curb right there, and it really upsets. You can see how it just shoots the car up a lane. Busted part of the front end of the skirt right there too.
Carl is manhandling that car around the turns, aggressively attacking. And here again, these are the first laps any cars have been on the racetrack today. So these guys realize that there's weather moving in, and I guess they want to get as much as they can get done here in a hurry.
And they want to get as much dry track practice as they can, because if they get rain, they'll also practice in the rain with their rain tires.
Kevin Harvick won this race a year ago, driving in the 21 car. This is his own car he's driving in 2008. Kevin was impressive at Watkins Glen in 2007. He won 6 races a year ago, including a very dominant performance, leading the most laps here at Watkins Glen. Pretty good record, 2 wins on road course races in just 7 starts, 7 top 10 finishes, has never finished out of the top 10. That's pretty impressive for a driver who grew up on oval tracks. Jamie.
Well, Doc, just to add to that, I mean, Kevin Harvick is thrilled to have Shane Wilson back. You know, the 21 car is where Shane Wilson normally runs. Well, they've had some issues with sponsorship. They're not running a full-time season this year. So Shane's been at the shop kind of helping out whoever he could, and he was available. Richard said it was okay, so he came back here and trying to help out Kevin Harvick to get his first win in his own car in the 33. So far, so good. They had 7 laps total before that last run, and they said they felt pretty good. They just needed a little more forward bite.
Jamie, that's a great point. Shane Wilson was the crew chief for Richard Childress Racing when Harvick won the championship in 06 with 9 victories. They had 6 wins together a year ago, so 15 wins for Shane and Kevin Harvick. Now he's got him working on the 33 car to help out.
That can't be anything but good news for Harvick because these guys have so much success together.
Second fastest car is Denny Hamlin, as you see, coming up in the 32 car. Denny's had a good record here, too.
Yeah, finally got another car into the 73 second bracket. He's just 0.03 of a second from Jimmy Johnson's fast lap of 73.83.
I don't know how much when we look and talk about Denny Hamlin, that you talk about him being a road course racer, but you know, in his 2 Cup starts, he's finished 2nd and 10th here, so he knows how to get the job done.
And he's won down in Mexico and in the Nationwide Series, so he's quite a good road racer.
His very first win in Mexico City. Denny Hamlin has gotten it done this year in the NASCAR Nationwide Series car, winning in his hometown at Richmond. How about on the high bank concrete monster in Dover, Delaware, back at the end of May? Of course, Daytona, what a 4th of July celebration it was for the Joe Gibbs Racing team, and Denny Hamlin win number 3 on the season. Driving for Todd Braun Motorsports this weekend. He is not in the Joe Gibbs car. The only Joe Gibbs car here, by the way, is the 20 car. That's Joey Logano driving. So check in on the 48's progress. Jimmy Johnson. Shannon?
Yeah, Jimmy Johnson, 48 team. This is the team from his Cup side. He's got Chad Knaus, as you can see down there talking to Jimmy Johnson right now. That is, of course, his Cup crew chief. So it is an all-star cast down here in the garage for this Nationwide team. His over-the-wall guys from the Cup team are also going to be with him tomorrow night in the race. Right now, Jimmy Johnson fast on the track, but he's saying that the car is just a little bit loose in and through the center. So as you can see, Chad discussing things with his team right now. They're going to go to work on this car and try to make it as perfect as they can for Jimmy Johnson. Guys?
He was at the top of the charts, Shannon, and guess who just went up there by him? Mr. Harvick here. Kevin Harvick, last year's winner, put his own car at the top of the speed charts. And you know, by seeing Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus, although these are different race cars, Andy, these guys are obviously trying to learn a lot from the Nationwide car that maybe will help them on Sunday.
Yeah, they're not here for fun. They're here to learn all they can for their effort in the Cup Series and to win this race. Jimmy Johnson wants to win another Nationwide Series event.
That was Jeff Burton, the 29 car, going by Harvick as he slows down. We'll update Kevin Harvick's progress right now. He's at the top of the speed charts. Back in a moment. Update all the motorsports news from around the country. NASCAR Now coming up tonight, 6:30 Eastern Time. NASCAR Nationwide Series qualifying tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. from Watkins Glen. Live flag-to-flag coverage of the Nationwide cars on ABC tomorrow at 2:30 Eastern Time. IndyCar action, IndyCar 300 at Kentucky tomorrow at 6 o'clock. And, of course, NASCAR Sprint Cup at Watkins Glen. Our coverage begins with NASCAR Countdown Sunday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time on ESPN. We just joined our coverage of NASCAR Sprint Cup qualifying has been rained out, and they have lined up the field by virtue of owners' points, meaning Kyle Busch and Dale Earnhardt Jr. will lead them down at 1 o'clock on Sunday. We have the NASCAR Nationwide Series cars on the track and some issues here with Dale Earnhardt Jr. and the 5 car. Let's listen in.
This thing's got a bad problem, man. It will not turn. Chatters tires, and there's something serious wrong with it. I get run over having to stop for the corner. like it's getting up on the corner of the tire.
Shannon?
Yeah, you know, it was just over a week ago these guys were celebrating in Victory Lane. This is the same car, as I told you at the beginning of practice, that they drove to Victory Lane last week in Montreal, but they are not happy, as you just heard from that radio. The chattering is something they've been dealing with this entire practice. I think we can probably go to the tech center with Tim Brewer for some more on this.
Thanks, Shannon. You know, in my opinion, if they've got this coil bind situation that Andy was talking to a while ago, sometimes that doesn't work turning left and right. You have to be too accurate to get this particular mode to work. Me, Andy, I'm like you. I'd put me some front springs in that thing, give it a little bit more weight transfer, let the tires work with the springs. If I were going to fix that problem, I'd have to go back to conventional setup. Andy?
Yeah, I think that's what they're trying here. You know, and me and Dale were just talking a while ago when we heard that, was that maybe that these road racers are wanting something. You know, Ron Fells drove this car last week. Do you think that maybe their setup, what they're looking for in the setup, is quite different?
Yeah, I think that it could be completely different. I know that the guys, the road racers that come in here, they usually like a lot of spring in the front of there, and maybe it's just a little bit too much for the feel that Junior's getting, or it could be like Tim said, it could be the other side of it, that Junior wanted to come here and try to sit on those springs because that's what he's used to, and go that direction, and that may not be working. This is a momentum racetrack, and you could hear him say that he's getting run over because he's having to stop in the corners, and you really have to keep that momentum going to utilize your straightaway speed and not get past as you're coming out of these corners.
Earnhardt Jr. right now is 31st out of 48 cars on the speed chart. Not nearly where he would like to be. Who's at the top of the speed charts? Well, Kevin Harvick. Shannon?
It's
Jamie.
actually Jamie, but that's okay. We're here. Kevin Harvick out of the car now. P1, well, you're back with your old crew chief, just like old times, Kevin?
Well, our Camping World Chevrolet has been really good. You know, we built three brand new road race cars after Mexico. We got our butts kicked, and they did good with it last week, and this is another new car. But it's nice to, you know, to have Shane and working with all the normal guys on a week-to-week basis that we've been on this Camping World Chevrolet. But car's been really good. The throttle's hanging, so we got to fix that. And other than that, you know, the car's really good.
What would it mean for you to get your first win in your own car here at the Glen?
Well, I really enjoy the road racing, and we've been fortunate to be fairly successful at it. And we concentrated pretty heavily on these particular cars to just try to make them as good as we can. We didn't necessarily have bad cars before, but we just didn't pay as much attention to it as we have with these cars. But any win's a good win, and you know, we've seemed to have been running really well the last month in the nationwide car. Kale's had some good runs. Ron had a good run last week, and Cup stuff's going good in our Shell Pennzoil Chevrolet. So it's been a good couple months. You know, we're knocking on the door in both series.
All right, that's Kevin Harvick. The extra laps have got to help his effort, Doc, for the Cup stuff, which they'll get in that car tomorrow.
Hard to believe he hasn't won this year. His best finish is second at Richmond. That may change tomorrow. These guys are right now on dry tires, but how long is that going to last? Here's the radar looking at Watkins Glen. If we do get rain, guys, they do have the option of going, and NASCAR could make the call. They could go to the wet weather tires and turn some laps because they could race those tires here tomorrow.
Yeah, they either want it to stay dry or they want it to rain a good bit. Something in between there is not good for either tire. Obviously, the slicks that they have, and we're looking at the rain tire here now, it takes quite a bit of water for that to actually work, doesn't it, Andy?
Well, I talked to the Goodyear guys today in the garage area, and they were telling me that this tire is very versatile. As a matter of fact, it doesn't have to be totally submerged in water to work, that it'll actually work fairly well on dry, but you do have to have some water on the racetrack to cool it. The thing is with these rain tires, if you don't have water somewhere on the racetrack to cool these things, they'll overheat because they got about 5 times more rubber. If you measure the rubber on that tire, it's probably 5 times thicker than it is on a regular slick tire. And so you have to cool that rubber, and the way they do it is through the water on the racetrack. So they can handle a little bit of dry, but they cannot handle much of that.
92 car, that is Kyle Busch. First time he has been in this car this year. He's been in the Todd Braun Motorsports cars and both of the Joe Gibbs cars. This is the car owned by Eddie DeHaan. Jerry Pitts is the crew chief. It is a Toyota, and he is, of course, the NASCAR Sprint Cup points leader and a 6-time winner here in the NASCAR Nationwide Series. And by the way, unbeaten on road course races here in 2008.
Yeah, little did we know what a road racer he was, I guess, before this season started. And he does a terrific job. And, you know, we say it's the first time he's been in this car, but it hadn't seemed to matter if he's in a car or a truck or who the team was. He's been able to win in it. So this will be interesting to see this weekend with this team that has very little experience on the racetrack, what they can do.
That car looked really good through that inner loop. It changed directions real well, but well, okay, I was bragging on a little too soon. Didn't change that direction as
it
good
looked
as
good the one before. Yeah, that was just carried a little too much speed down to that one.
Yeah, they're going to come in and work on it just a little bit more.
The 92 car is 17th on the speed charts.
Using curbs.
That's the neat thing about having a driver like this when you've got a young or new team, is that he knows exactly what he needs. He goes out there and runs just enough to find out what he needs to change and comes in and fixes it.
Earlier today, we had this driver, David Rudiman, join us here as a guest inside our pit studio. One of the drivers, one of 18 drivers doing double duty this weekend. This is the Nationwide car for Michael Waltrip Racing.
Yeah, David will make you. He'll joke around that, you know, he's not the best road racer, but the problem is it's not that he can't do it. As we see him get into that a little bit hot and he can go straight through here, he's not going to finish this lap, but that's the opportunity that you have. He was testing to see just how far he could get into that corner, into the inner loop. He obviously can't go quite that far, but he is he will become a
give me a
good
little
road
bit more
racer.
front as opposed to taking away from the rear.
Here's the 20 car, Joey Logano. This is the Joe Gibbs car. Sliced bread, got some wet buns last week at Montreal because even though he was running fourth there in the last lap, visibility became an issue, and he slid off the racetrack and slammed the barrier, slammed another car, and ended up costing him a top 10 finish. But I guess he impressed a lot of people, myself included, by watching what he did for the first time in a stock car on a road course.
He did. He impressed me too, and especially handling the wet conditions as well as he did. And he was just a victim of that that real hard rain shower that came under caution. The guys told me they couldn't see at all. Once the car slowed down, that they couldn't see anything because it was raining so hard.
Yeah, I think it's very impressive what he was able to do, and again, in the wet conditions, everything that he's done has been pretty amazing so far. I know he's with a good race team, but this young man has a lot of talent, and he's on the fast track to get into the Cup Series. Yeah, he got his first victory back a couple of months ago at Kentucky, and he's just continued to set sail since then.
Took him only 3 starts to go to victory lane, and he did it on a mile and a half before a packed house at Kentucky Speedway. He became the youngest winner in NASCAR Nationwide Series history, 18 years, 21 days, and what a great Father's Day present. Joey Logano going to victory lane, already a winner, a 2-time pole, 1-time visit to victory lane, and just 7 total starts. Back at Watkins Glen International Raceway, and folks, the weather is beginning to move in, so we just might be able to have some of those wet tires available for practice here. And if you just joined our coverage last week at Montreal, NASCAR made history. The NASCAR Nationwide Series, to be exact. First time in the 60-year history of NASCAR that we've had a points-paying race actually run in the rain on rain tires. Lap 14, the rains moved in, and they decided to bring them on the pit road and put the rain tires on. Some of the guys needed some lessons on squeegeeing, but they still got it done. Out there trying to do the best they can. Ron Fellows used some pit strategy, and on lap 48, when they said, we're done, he was the guy who was the winner in victory lane. Let's go down and visit with Tim Brewer.
Thanks, Jerry. Look at this tire right here. This footprint's about 11.5 inches wide, but you go over here to this rain tire. Same footprint, but look at these channeling efforts right here. What this is designed to do is keep from hydroplaning. The slick's going to give you more grip, but in the rain, it's going to actually channel the water away. But, we talk about that vision problem. When I'm channeling all that water out from under the tires, it becomes spray, and that's the reason the drivers can't see. Jamie?
Well, I'm here with Drew Blickensderfer, crew chief, of course, for Carl Edwards, and we're looking at these clouds rolling in. Drew, what are you guys thinking at this point?
Well, you kind of rearrange your priorities. We go from working on chassis stuff, if we think our car's balanced, to working on motor, fuel mileage, things that's going to be really important for tomorrow.
What about if rain comes today? Will you guys switch over and run in the rain?
No, the weather looks really good for tomorrow, so we won't jeopardize the car to go out for rain practice. We learned a lot last week of what we need chassis-wise, so we'll throw that in the car if everything's going to rain for tomorrow.
So right now it's all about focus on tomorrow, dry racetrack.
Correct, dry racetrack.
All right, right now they're going to try to get as many more laps as they can in this practice session, Doc.
People working on trying to get their cars dialed in, and here are some of the double-duty experts. Jimmy Johnson atop the speed charts. Kevin Harvick, number 2 overall speed. Denny Hamlin, Max Pappas, who will be running both events this weekend, driving the 70 car for Haas Racing. Boris Said, by the way, did not make the NASCAR Sprint Cup race, although he was here with his 60 car because qualifying was rained out. They started by points. Same thing that happened to Boris Said here a year ago when he got to start the 21 car when Bill Elliott offered him the ride to drive that car. Ryan Newman. How about Brad Coleman? News of this week for Brad Coleman. He will be in the 96 car in the NASCAR Sprint Cup for Hall of Fame racing at Michigan next week.
Got a top 5 finish here last year. He's a road racer too. He might be one of those road course ringers.
Yeah, he might be that, and he's also an excited young man this week, knowing that when they get away from here this week, that he's going to be in qualifying or attempting to qualify for his first Sprint Cup race next week at Michigan. So a pretty exciting week for that young man.
Coming up through the S's, and we heard some of the drivers say earlier that you have to be wide open. You got to know what you're doing. More news, the 40 car, Dario Franchitti, by the way, back in the NASCAR Nationwide Series, reigning IRL champion, Indy 500 winner from 2007. Good to have Dario back in the series.
He gets in there just a little too hot. I saw that right front tire lock up getting in that corner. He had to get off the brake to keep from flat spotting that tire. They have some runoff area there now they didn't used to have, and those guys can handle that a little easier.
Yeah, it used to be sand down there. I'm well aware of that too much, but you can see that gave him the opportunity to get in there a little bit hard and still stay on track and get back in front of the car that he was in front of there. So he knows now that he can't get in that corner quite that hard. Another hard braking area here.
Dario will be making his 12th start of the year. He has been the top finishing rookie 7 times in 11 races with a high finish of 6th at Las Vegas. The low point of the year, well, Talladega. Early laps at Talladega, has issues with a tire, and then is contacted as he's coming across the racetrack at almost 200 miles an hour, and that impact right there fractured his left ankle, forcing him to miss the next 4 weeks. Very fortunate that it wasn't more severe given the impact and the speed of the car that hit him. Dario, one of 5 drivers in competition for Rebestis Rookie of the Year. In fact, the driver he shares this number 40 car with, Brian Clausen, at the top of the rookie points, just 6 points back to Landon Castle, who was the rookie of the race last week at Montreal. Then Dario Franchitti, just 26 points back. Cale Gale, who finished 6th at ORP a couple of weeks ago, driving for Kevin Harvick. And Brian Keselowski, who is the older brother of Brad. Those are the 5 in contention for Rookie of the Year.
You know, we've got a new man at the top of the list. Jeff Burton has just gone here in the 29 Holiday Inn Chevrolet from RCR.
He's just not one of the guys I would pick out to say, okay, he's going to be one of the fast guys on a road course. But the reason he's running this race is to get better on the road course as a driver, is what he's told me.
Yeah, I think Jeff does a really good job. I can remember back the 2001 or 2 of Jeff running really well here and getting himself in a position to win. I believe he ended up finishing 2nd. So just as we talked about him being on top, Boris Said went to the top, knocked him off. And these guys are really starting to put down some fast laps now. Burton back to the top once again now.
Let's keep one-upping each other. Now this time, Jeff Burton ran a lot faster. He ran about 4/10 faster than the fastest time that was Boris Said.
Boris drove the 25 car for Ed Renzi in Mexico City and said they would have their own car here at Watkins Glen, a car they prepared out of their own stable with Frankie Stoddard and company working on the car. And Boris, because he's not in the Cup race, this is the big weekend for him. Got to get it done here in the Nationwide race on Saturday.
Yeah, he's really looking forward to this weekend. He loves coming and running these races, and obviously he's been in all of these. This is a moment that he wouldn't want to see again, but
had high hopes for this race. He thought he had a shot to win this race, and so did Marcus Ambrose, and they kind of argued over a little space right here. You see that Boris got the worst of this.
Both running in the top 10. Marcus Ambrose would go on and have a great finish. Boris Said very, very angry. Vented it there as the cars came by, and later on in an interview saying went up and apologized to Marcus Crucci for the car you're going to lose sometime later in the year because I'm going to get even.
Well, let's hope it doesn't happen this weekend. These guys are running the same race, but heard Boris say earlier, it sounds like it's cooled off a little bit since Mexico.
Yeah, believe that. Okay. NASCAR Nationwide Series. How long does it take you to cool off before I move it? How long does it take a driver to cool off? Something
You're
like
asking the wrong guy.
No, I'm asking DJ.
Takes him a while.
I know that. That's why I'm
cool
asking.
off. Yeah, you'll cool off, but if the opportunity presents itself, I'll promise you he hasn't forgotten that and won't for quite a while. So you keep, we might not be the smartest guys as far as drivers go, but we have pretty good memories, I'll assure you. So they keep that in the bank.
I remember that, folks. Here's Stephen Wallace on the racetrack in the 66 car. A driver who did a really nice job in Montreal was Stephen Wallace. He qualified 8th, and because they had to make some adjustments on the car, he started at the very back of the pack and drove this car all the way up through the field in the first like 10 or 11 laps. He passed like 25 cars on the racetrack. Did a heck of a job.
Yeah, very impressive. Both the road course races this year, he's finished in the top 10. He does a great job, and that's been the most impressive thing. Of course, if he listens to his dad at all about driving a road course, he should be pretty good.
Rusty, of course, Rusty Wallace, a two-time winner here in NASCAR Sprint Cup action in 87 and 89 at Watkins Glen. Yeah, Stephen, by the way, one of only 5 drivers that has top 10 finishes in both road course events this year in the NASCAR Nationwide Series. Watkins Glen International history, well, hard to find anyone better at this racetrack than this guy here, Rusty Wallace. Back in the day, Jimmy Maycar and company getting it done there for the 27 car. Russell William Wallace, a two-time winner in the NASCAR Sprint Cup action at Watkins Glen, of course, on his way to a championship in 1989.
Seems like some guys just take to that road racing quicker than others, don't they?
Absolutely, yeah. And Rusty was one of those guys that you always looked at, that he was going to be the guy to be when you showed up. And Stephen has shown a lot of the same thing. He does just a terrific job. He has a really good feel of his race car, very aggressive, but makes all of that work.
Tiptoeing inside the 65 car of Stan Silva makes the pass. A lot of people were very impressed with what Stephen Wallace did last week at Montreal, and how special would it be if he could get his first win in the NASCAR Nationwide Series at a track where his dad was so very good. Watkins Glen International. Back in a moment. NASCAR Sprint Cup action set for Sunday afternoon here at Watkins Glen. Remember, Tony Stewart has won 4 of the last 6 events here, but it's been a year since Tony Stewart has gone to victory lane. Jeff Gordon is the all-time winningest driver on road courses with 9 victories. He has not won here in 2008. Who will it be? Our coverage began Sunday 1 o'clock Eastern time with NASCAR Countdown. Alan Bester will be in the seat along with Brad Doherty. Rusty Wallace and our coverage began shortly thereafter here of NASCAR Sprint Cup Series action at Watkins Glen. Moments ago, our NASCAR Sprint Cup Series points leader, now driving double duty in the Nationwide Series, had his issues. Let's listen in.
Something happened. Motor just shut off. Did you check the steering wheel button there? Make sure it wasn't out? Yeah, it's F4, not that.
Yeah, as you guys just heard, Kyle Busch having some issues with that car. He came over the radio and he said that the power inside the car is fine. It was just his A-box ignition that shut down, so he went over to the B-box. Right now the team is deciding whether Kyle will be able to make it back to the garage or if they're going to have to go out there and take care of the issue. Tim?
Thanks, Shannon. Look over here, folks. What this is, you've got a primary ignition box. We've got a secondary ignition box. All the driver has to do is literally walk over here, flip this switch right here, and he's back in business because he's got 2 ignition systems in the car, and that switch goes to the secondary ignition system.
Makes it seem easy, and of course, a driver, if it just shut. DJ, during the race when that happens, is that the first thing you think about, or do you have to? Do you give it a little bit of time to kick back on and
Yeah, usually you panic for a second and then you start looking around because you obviously know your race car and what's in there, but so many things go through your mind right then. First thing that you're doing is trying to make sure that you don't get run over from behind when the car shuts off, and then that's whenever you start flipping switches. And I was probably different, but I just started flipping every switch, so I never knew exactly which one fixed it, but hopefully one of them would.
Wow, look at Jimmy Johnson get down into this interloop now. That's getting all there is out of the brakes. You can see the car really kind of wiggling, all but sliding all 4 tires there. That's getting it done.
Yeah, if that car really stayed flat through there, and boy, if you can make your car do that, that's a good feeling, because you've got all 4 tires helping you get through the right and left then.
Here comes a road racer right here. Robbie Gordon, his 55 car. He's always been one of the cars to beat here.
He won here in 2003 in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, driving his own car here in the NASCAR Nationwide Series this weekend. Robbie has driven about everything you could drive on road courses, off-road racing, Baja, you name it. If it's got wheels, Robbie Gordon can drive it. Carl Edwards in the 60 car, we saw how they've repaired now. We're part of that front air dam area where he was hitting some of the ripple strips over there coming up through the inner loop.
You see a lot of these guys have a little different styles of the way they drive a road course, and how aggressive they are with the brakes and or how smooth they are, and sometimes that'll really dictate the setup that you put in the thing. And I noticed that this 60 car is very soft in the front. It looks like it might even be on what we call a coil bind setup, because when he goes down in the corner and hits the brakes, it kind of bounces hard on the springs.
Jimmy Johnson missing the inner loop. And if you do it during the race, you're going to have to slow down, come to a complete stop, and give the positions away that you may have gained, or else you'll get black flag.
Yeah, it's best to do that, because you don't want to have to come back down pit road. It'll cost you a whole lot more time than just stopping up there.
Yeah, you don't want to come down at 30 miles an hour. 35 miles an hour. That'll take you a long time. Moments ago, Marcus Ambrose had contact in the inner loop. Let's watch him, one of the best in road racing. Even,
Well, he was making the pass, and he really didn't give the other guy much room there. He had his car out of shape, and it's hard to go in there straight. And you can see that he literally is the one that created this contact. The other car has to turn at some point in time.
Yeah, I think maybe he was worried. He was almost scared to turn the steering wheel because he was on the brake so hard that he may have lost control and caused a bigger wreck.
Larry Gunzelman is the 0 car that was involved there. That had the wheel mark and the contact with Marcus Ambrose. Steve Addington over there looking on. He's the Cup Series crew chief for Kyle Busch, looking over what happened with the Nationwide car. Shannon.
Yeah, guys, you can see Steve Addington down here looking down on his driver, points leader Kyle Busch. Of course, he's having the problems inside that car with the ignition box. We're going to try to jump on over there and get Steve Addington in just a second.
Gone to the backup ignition box, and interesting, that you talk about how different these Nationwide cars are from the Cup car of today that they're running. Yet everybody over there, all these Cup crew chiefs over there, trying to learn as much as they can about either being a part of the setup like Chad Canals was, or right there on top of what's happening with his driver Kyle Busch and Steve Addington is right now.
It could be he's just bored because they couldn't get on the track with the Cup cars, and he just wants to get over there and see how the cars are reacting, what they're changing, what they're learning. And you see now he's talking to Kyle. They might be able to get something out of this practice session that'll help him tomorrow.
Yeah, and I'm sure that he's trying to help Kyle. They're sitting there in 21st right now. He's about a second and a half off of what the fast time is right now. So I'm sure that he's wanting to help Kyle, knowing that that'll get his frame of mind a lot better overnight and for him tomorrow.
Would be much better for Steve to have Kyle run well on Saturday than to have him run poorly and have to climb in the car. By the way, Kyle Busch will be the car that will lead him to the green flag, because the Cup lineup, if you just joined our coverage, NASCAR Sprint Cup qualifying was canceled because of rains all morning. They have lined them up by points, which means that Kyle Busch and Dale Earnhardt Jr. will be on the front row at 1 o'clock on Sunday.
You can see Kyle using his hands to tell Steve exactly what's happening with this race car. There's a lot more gestures that you can do here as we see Kevin Harvick's back on the racetrack.
He's up to second spot on the speed chart. He was on top of it for a while, and then Jeff Burton jumped up there, and Jimmy Johnson moved ahead of him, and now Kevin's back ahead of Jimmy.
Kevin Harvick won this race a year ago with Richard Childress, and the irony here is that he owns this car along with Delana Harvick. His wife Harvick, Kevin Harvick Incorporated, has never won in his own race car. He's had wins from Tony Stewart twice at Daytona. Bobby Labonte won in his car at Talladega last year, but Kevin has never won in his own car. He said, man, I got to get one in my own car because it'll be a very emotional day to win in a car you own. Fifth fastest car on the track as you watch practice continue is Marcus Ambrose. Let's visit with him. Jamie?
Well, Doc, you guys were analyzing what happened out there, so let's just get it from the horse's mouth. Marcus, what happened?
What with?
When you had a little, well, we're standing right up against a donut on the side of your car.
I just got a little frustrated, to be honest with you. You know, we're out there trying to bust some fast laps, and guys come out of the pits, and they're not looking in their mirrors, or they're not getting told what's going on around them, and I just got a little frustrated.
And I was checking out the front of your car, actually, on the grill, and I believe you might have hit something with feathers. Did you notice that at all?
Well, you know, we're conservationists at heart, and we're animal lovers, so if I hit something, I feel bad for it. Not that I can really know what's going on now, but yeah, that's what happens. It's a beautiful place up here in Watkins, Glen. There's a lot of wildlife and nature up here. Unfortunately, we just finished some animals' life a little short.
Marcos Ambrose is going to turn some more laps here, Shannon.
We told you we'd catch up with Steve Addington. Now, as soon as Kyle Busch started to have trouble out there on the track, you were in here immediately leaning in the window. What role are you going to play in this nationwide race on Saturday night?
Well, you know, he put this deal together, so that's up to him. So I'm just over there in the motorhome watching it on TV, and I got to texting Jeff Dickerson up on the spotter stand and just telling him what I said, and he wanted me to come over here. So I'm just trying to help Kyle out any way I can, you know, to make it better for him to race on Saturday. So it's just helping out.
Now, how beneficial is it for you to listen into the radio and hear how Kyle is responding to this car and this track here in practice and in the race on Saturday?
Well, at least it's the same thing on Saturday as it is on Sunday. So, I mean, he just wants to make it better. So we're just trying to help out. Just sitting there watching it on TV, it just kills me to sit in there and listen. So gathered up and just ran out here to see if I could help out, you know, just help with rear springs or shocks or something like that, get my input. You know, it's up to him. This is his deal. I'm just trying to help him out.
Well, you guys are definitely working as a team, and that's why the championship leaders right now. Doc?
I told you he was bored.
You were right. Here's the 2 car. It's already had one shunt on the racetrack where they've had to repair some damage in the front and rear, and just a moment ago, more contact. And again, it's the 0 car of Larry Gunzelman.
Looks like Gunzelman he's just running Clint completely off the racetrack right here up the backstretch. I don't know what that's about. I have a feeling he'll get a talking to from Clint Boyer when he gets in the garage.
This was the Marcus Ambrose incident. I'm not so sure this was Gunzelman's fault, though.
Well, I think this is a little, like you said, frustration, because this 0 car pulled out in front of these guys when they were making a fast lap. He pulled out of the pits and held these guys up, and I think it caused a little frustration.
Clint Boyer talking to Richard Childress. He's been somewhat of a cue ball today. Everybody's bouncing off the 2.
Richard said, hey, now, I brought you a nice car up here. Don't be banging it up.
Yeah, we got to make these BB&T people happy. They want to at least have their stickers still on here tomorrow when we get ready to race.
Clint holding on to the NASCAR Nationwide Series points. Our in-race reporter, Mad Max Pappas, right now at the top of the speed charts. He qualified 2nd at Montreal, and he is the quickest here. He is our in-race reporter. Would you like to ask a question of Max Pappas? Well, you can if you want to log on to ESPN.com and pose a question. Keyword, ask the driver. And you just might have your question answered by Mad Max Pappas during the pre-race festivities as our in-race reporter here tomorrow. Back with more from Watkins Glen in a moment. Want to update your motorsports info? What's happening on the forefront of NASCAR Nationwide Series and NASCAR Sprint Cup action? Just tune into NASCAR Now tonight, 6:30 Eastern Time. 10 a.m. tomorrow, NASCAR Nationwide Series at Watkins Glen qualifying. And then our live flag-to-flag coverage. We have NASCAR Countdown as well at 2:30 Eastern Time. We'll be on ABC for live flag-to-flag for the NASCAR Nationwide Series. IndyCar action, the IndyCar 300 at Kentucky. Marty Reed and Company tomorrow, 6 o'clock Eastern Time. And then Sunday at 1 o'clock, Alan Bestwick, Brad Daugherty, Rusty Wallace. NASCAR Countdown will kick it off. And then our coverage of the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series at Watkins Glen on ESPN. Kyle Busch does not look like he is very pleased right now with what's going on. He had issues with the electronics in his car. Let's check in out in his garage area. Shannon.
Yeah, guys, told you a little bit earlier how his A ignition box had shut down, so he had switched over to the B box. Well, bad news, the B box is down now. So Kyle Busch back in the garage. Those guys are going to work on that car, try to get it fixed up for Kyle Busch.
Not driving for Joe Gibbs this weekend, driving for Eddie DeHaan and the guys that's in a 92 car. You know, trying to get, that's Jerry Pitts, by the way. You saw the crew chief there talking to Kyle. And again, in defense of these guys, they are a very new team and don't run very much. They're just trying to get their ducks in a row.
The last thing you want to chase, especially at the racetrack, is an electrical problem. And, you know, they've been through 2 ignition boxes and they couldn't fix it. So it's obviously somewhere else in the wiring system. I always hate those things and trying to deal with them at the track.
Yeah, that's always a nightmare. Here we see Clint Boyer back on the racetrack. And folks, just to let you know, these guys aren't just practicing. They're practicing, obviously, getting ready for the race, but they also are practicing to get these fast times in, because this will determine tomorrow in qualifying what group they go out in. They don't go out in single car runs tomorrow qualifying. They'll go out in groups, and this will determine when they will go out, what group they go. So the guys that are the fastest will be the last ones to go out, which should be probably the kind of the best time.
I like that. I really like the way that you can earn your spot in that order, the way you go out. There'll be 5-minute sessions these guys will go out in, and I think it'll be 5 cars in each one, or 6 cars, and they go out there and lay these lap times down as fast as they can in those allotted times. And I think waiting, you know, what makes it neat is that they always go faster. You start with the slowest group and go to the fast.
And they send the cars out one by one, 15 to 20 seconds apart on pit road, so they can spread them out enough where you'll be able to run laps. And it adds a lot of drama to qualifying.
It does, and we can see Clint Boyer's got himself in a spot here. Well, now there is one car around. I couldn't see any cars there for a minute. With the action he's had already, I think he was just looking to get some track time by himself.
They wanted to sit him out where he had plenty of race room, and also wanted to find an opening where the 0 car wasn't.
Yeah, and that's why you see these guys get a little bit aggravated with somebody pulling out in front of them. You know, there's a courtesy. When you go out of the pits, you try to make sure that as you go out, it's really blind going down into turn 1 as you go down pit road, but you're hoping your spotter's going to let you know nothing's coming, because these guys are trying to make fast laps right now to get themselves moved up in the running order. Clint Boyer has moved himself up to 6th right now.
Yeah, that's a long way. He's been working hard at this, and the car wasn't just exactly right. He's had a couple of incidents. He's got that thing. That just seems like Clint Boyer's style, though. He kind of just starts off, you don't really see much of him, and then all of a sudden here he is at the top.
Let's visit with the 5th fastest driver in this session, Boris Said. Jamie?
Well, good to see Boris Said out here, but because of the weather, it's another bittersweet day. What is it like for you, Boris, knowing you obviously weren't able to qualify for the Cup race, and now you guys are running so well in the nationwide side?
It sucks. I mean, there's no other word to describe it. I mean, the weather's beautiful, so it's hard for me to believe they couldn't find time to qualify us. But, I mean, rules are rules, but I'm glad we entered our Ford Fusion in the nationwide race, because our 7-Eleven No Fear energy drink here is running really good. I'm just 2 years in a row I missed the race because of weather, and man, it's just depressing. I mean, we built such a great car, Frankie Stoddard and the boys at the No Fear Racing team, and we got so much fan support up here with all these set heads and people, you know, cheering us on. Really wanted to race that Ford Fusion, but we'll do the best we can in the nationwide race, and I might end up driving another car in tomorrow's race. I haven't got it done yet, but hopefully after practice I can get it done so I can at least drive something.
Well, you did mention earlier you were going to talk to Ford, so you do have something that may line up for you to race in the Cup Series?
Yeah, I have a ride that somebody offered me, a really good ride, but it's not a Ford, so you know, I think out of common courtesy, they've done so much for me this year, Ford. I want to go and talk to Doug Hervey and just ask his permission and see if he'll let me race, because I really want to race. I can't stand if I miss this race, because I don't get that many chances. But you know, I just thank for all the fan support on our No Fear energy drink, and going to nofear.com, our website, and you know, hopefully going into a 7-Eleven and buying our energy drink there. And it's just it's a lot of fun up here.
Well, guys, Boris Said has a great shot at winning this thing here tomorrow, and perhaps we're going to see him in the Cup race on Sunday. Shannon?
Well, Jamie here with Jimmy Johnson making a rare appearance here in the Nationwide Series. We were just discussing the possibility of rain tires. Now, you said you're doing this just to get a little extra experience for the Cup race. How would putting rain tires affect your learning process for Sunday's race?
Well, it wouldn't really help me much for the Cup car, but I still would have a blast. I think I've had the most fun, you know, running the Rolex races that I have running in the wet. It's been really, really interesting to be in the wet and be in those cars. I'd like to get a little seat time in this if that was the case, but like we were talking before we went on here, the reason I'm really doing this is to help me for the Cup car, and this has been a good practice session for us. The car's been really fast. Different feeling. I mean, it's amazing how much deeper and harder you can drive this car with the extra downforce and grip and those things that this car has, but you know, I'm having fun, and hopefully we can get a trophy.
Are there specific areas on the track where you feel the difference between the two cars more than others?
Yeah, I mean, the car with the downforce and the lack of horsepower, it's amazing how hard you can really charge a corner entry. You still end up with the same problem, the wheel hop into one and some of the other issues that show up in the other turns, but you're doing it a number or two later, braking number later than you would in the Cup cars. So it's nice to be aggressive in this thing and get a feel for it. And still at the same time, back in my mind, I know with that Cup car, my marks I need to use are behind me.
Well, Junior Motorsports has had a lot of success this season. What will you be happy with in Saturday's race in this car?
Well, I truthfully want to run good for these guys, and I want to compete for the win and bring them back a straight race car. Then after that, I only have one nationwide trophy, and I'd love to get a second. And I'd love to win on a road course. It would be something special to me. All
right, well, good luck to you this weekend, Jimmy. Doc?
Shannon, he also wants to win at Bristol, Tennessee. That's why he has entered in 2 weeks to drive Randy Moss's truck, and he just saw what was that, Kyle Busch walking in.
Hey, it's like, where's he going? Is he going to my truck?
That's my truck. That's my truck. What's he doing in here?
He's going to go find out.
So he's going to drive the Chevy Silverado, by the way, for Randy Moss at Bristol. 22 car, Ryan Newman, talking about former winners at Watkins Glen, and he was a late entry to drive this car, this Dodge, for Armando Fitz.
Got that thing up in the top 10 right now. Hustling that car around here.
We talked to him in our morning show when we were waiting for the NASCAR Sprint Cup cars to go off, and he said an announcement would be forthcoming regarding his plans for 2008 or 2009. He didn't give a specific timetable, but from the looks and the body language in the interview, it sounds like probably he's pretty well wrapped up. We just haven't made the announcement yet about what they're going to do.
Yeah, I think he knows what he's going to do. It's just not time for the rest of the world to know that, and that's quite all right. You know, since I'm on the media side now, I understand wanting to know this a lot quicker, but also knowing from the driver's side, you know, this is was a very big decision for Ryan to do, and when it's time for everybody else to know, then he's going to let us know that, and I feel certain that he's got himself in a very good situation for 2009 and beyond.
Speculation was that he would be the other driver in the Stewart-Haas racing team for 09, which will be a Chevrolet. Tony Stewart driving one car, the 14 car, for his legendary hero, A.J. Foyt. And the other car they were speculating would be Ryan Newman.
Yeah, and if that's the case, if that does happen, I think that just shows how much respect Tony Stewart has out there among his peers. For someone like Ryan Newman that is a proven winner in the Cup Series and the Nationwide Series, for him to take that chance and move over to a team that Tony is really starting up and helping get going, then I think that says a lot about how much just confidence he has in Tony and the abilities there in that entire organization. There's a lot of people who are going to have to make all of that work.
With Tony leaving now over at Joe Gibbs Racing, that lends the speculation that this kid here, the 18-year-old phenom Joey Logano, is the likely candidate, or is he, to step in the 20 Cup car. Jamie.
Well, and he tells us he's not so sure, but hey, he says he'd take it. He'd love to get in Cup. But right now, he's got his work cut out for him. First time ever here at Watkins Glen. I just talked to his dad, and he said, Joey said, he is hauling the mail out there a lot faster than he anticipated. He's got a driving coach here, Mike McLaughlin. He's watching him, helping him out. The car's actually been back here in the garage more than it's been on the track. They've made a lot of adjustments, trying to make 18-year-old Joey Logano comfortable behind the wheel here. And you guys, it's going to be pretty neat. On Wednesday, NASCAR Now is going to have a special one-hour show live from Joe Gibbs Racing, so we get to take you inside and take a look at how this race team operates, both on the Nationwide and the Cup side.
Jamie, Marty will be there. Marty Smith will be there, and we'll have an interview with Joe Gibbs, and of course the man who started it all, J.D. Gibbs, the president of the company. Where is Joe Gibbs Racing heading? Wow, what a year they've had thus far in 2008. NASCAR Nationwide Series practicing here in Watkins, Glen. Here's how the qualifying will get underway at 10 a.m. on ESPN2 tomorrow morning. Qualifying in reverse order of the final practice time. That's why it's so important right now to get as fast as you can get. It depends on which group you're going to get in. 3 groups of 6 cars going out, about 15 seconds apart. 6 groups of 5. There'll be 4 laps per group, 5-minute sessions per group. So you're going to be on the racetrack with either 5 or 6 other cars, and those 6 cars are going to try to get the best lap you can get, and we'll go from slowest group up to fastest group, so the drama will build throughout the morning with qualifying here for the NASCAR Nationwide Series cars. Here is the car and the driver that qualified on the outside of row 1 at Mexico City, Mad Max Pappas. And Max, by the way, is the son-in-law of Formula One legend Emerson Fittipaldi. His wife Tatiana is the daughter of Emerson Fittipaldi. Max spent 2 years in Formula One driving for Lotus and Arrows, so he understands the footwork it takes to get it done on a road course.
Well, he's busy in that car, isn't he?
Wow, this is such a cool shot to show you just how, these guys aren't just sitting there turning the steering wheel. There's a lot happening at a place like Watkins Glen.
Okay, he's not holding it wide open up through those S's there.
He probably got some laps on his tires, but he'll want to try to get his car to where he can do that. You see him lift off just a second to shift into high gear as he goes up. He's really hauling them out, over 180 miles an hour up here. Hard on the brakes, downshifting twice. He's in second gear going through the inner loop here. Back to the throttle some. Trying to give it as much as he can as come out of the right-hander.
Right here, you really got to work that throttle to make it through. I call it just like a carousel type corner. You see him working that throttle and finally getting it down wide open down the short chute.
Right there as you come out, you go to third gear. You can see he's not doesn't look like he's going to high gear there, or overdrive maybe.
He's taking his left foot and actually pre-pumping the brakes just to make sure that he's got a full pedal, so when he does go with that right foot, it's all there.
You like to know that it's going to be there whenever you get to that point of being on the brake hard. So he's back down the front stretch here. And just after you pass the start-finish line right there, this is going to start going downhill as you enter turn 1. You really have to be careful right here. You're hard on the brake, trying to let the car roll. You can see him get back to the gas just as he got the apex of that corner. And this is a little short shoot down to turn 2. Shifting gears. Now you really want to try to get wide open right here as soon as you can and be able to hold it. He's not able to hold his car wide open at that point.
He's not cracking it too much, but you can see him come up just a little bit on that throttle through that last corner.
That is impressive. How the drivers use the throttle at different, almost like playing a musical instrument.
It's the way he uses that right foot on the brake and the get throttle. You can see when he rolls over, he's blipping that throttle just to make that thing go in gear. You see a lot of road racers do it this way. We see Boris Sid does it this way, but some of them actually just use two pedal shifting where they downshift and upshift with no clutch.
You understand why he won the 24 Hours of Daytona twice, the 12 Hours of Sebring twice, Champ Car victories at Homestead, Portland, and Laguna Seca. Max Pappas can get it done. And by the way, if you're wondering how he got the nickname Mad Max, he told me that in 1996 he was driving the 24 Hours and he got in the car in the final stint. His car was
a little bit more rear spring and lower the track bar because we're tight.
His car was 3 laps down, and he drove and almost made up all 3 laps and won the 24 Hours. The announcers were saying he's driving like a madman. Look at this guy. And the nickname stuck, Mad Max.
Yeah, and you could hear him say there that he is an excellent race driver. You could hear him say that his car is tight. He was talking about putting a little bit more rear spring in it and that's probably why as we saw him go up through this is where we were talking about they really want to be wide open. But if the front end's not sticking there, you can't just stay wide open. You have to have enough pressure on the front there so you can't give it full throttle and get that car rocked back on the rear springs.
You see the Goodyear tire engineers checking the tire temperatures as they go around the car. The guy in the white shirt is actually a brake engineer. He's checking the brake temperatures and gives these guys a sheet on that, and they know the thresholds that they need to be in with those brakes.
I don't know what that sheet's going to tell him, but he can ride on there hard on the brakes. We can see that.
We can tell him that. We saw that.
Max is second quickest right now behind the 29 car of Jeff Burton, who has gone back to the top of the speed charts. Jeff Burton making his 9th start here in 2008. A 5-time winner a year ago, is yet to go to victory lane this year. His co-driver, Scott Wimmer, by the way, who will run 23 of the 35 races, has already won this year back in the spring at Nashville. Jamie.
Well, Doc, we were watching that video. We were watching the foot pedals and Max Pappas, and Jeff was checking it out. So, Jeff, how hard and how often are you guys working in this car?
It's really hard. I'm a driver, so I gotta say it's hard. You know, it's just so different than what we do every week, and it's but what I try to do is I try to take what I do every week and apply to this, rather than trying to do something completely different, because, you know, we only do this a couple, 3 times a year, and for me to try to change, you know, heel toe and all that mess, that just messes me up. So I do what I know, and I pretty much don't, you know, once I leave here, I don't see the clutch again, and you know, I keep my left foot brake and jamming in gear, and for me that works better. I see some of those guys heel toeing and all that, it just confuses me.
Don't tell the guys in the booth I said this, but earlier they were like surprised that you were at the top of the charts. Should we be watching for you to take the win here tomorrow?
Well, I think, I mean, you know, I think we ran second here last year or something like that. We ran
your best finish.
And we've worked really hard. Kevin Harvick's helped me. We've worked on the road courses a lot. We've gone and tested a lot together, and you know, I've been trying to become a better driver on the road courses, and I still don't think I'm where I need to be, but the car is really good. Holiday Inn, these guys have done a nice job. The Holiday Inn Chevrolet is really quick. We ran our, we actually ran our we made a Q run right there, but we got blocked both laps, and you know, our fastest lap is in race trim, so real happy with it on old tires, out of fuel, and that's what counts here, because you're gonna, you know, everybody knows the strategy. It's no big secret. You're gonna pit as soon as you can, and end the race on old tires, and you got to be fast then. And I'm really, really proud of this car on old tires. It really drives well, and I can drive real aggressive, and typically when we have that, we do well.
All right, he says he's got a fast race car. Certainly have to keep our eyes on the 29, Doc.
Jamie, they should not be surprised, because Jeff Burton has 4 top 10 finishes in 5 starts here in the Nationwide car, including finishing second a year ago to his teammate Kevin Harvick. So he has been very good historically here at Watkins Glen, but is yet to go to victory lane. This may be a bit of a surprise, though, on the road course. Brad Keselowski is in the top 10 right now in the 88 car. He is 10th overall, being, I should say, 9th overall on the speed charts.
Hasn't been a totally clean day for Brad. He's had a few little excursions here.
Stay to the right, Brad. Stay to the right there. Stay to the right. Stay to the right. There you go. Just practicing what it's like to go backwards.
That was a full 360, right? That's pretty cool right there. Jamie?
Yeah, then Brad came in, he goes, how about that? I'm not slow on a road course, and this is his very first time here at the Glen. And I asked him what's making him adapt so easily. He said this is an oval racer's road course. He said because it has banking, there's a lot of similarities. So he's learning, he's 10th right now, and he feels pretty good about things.
Jamie, the learning curve for Brad Keselowski, he'd be the first one to tell you that he has come so far in a year. And in fact, since this year began, he has only been marching up through the field. Got that first win at Nashville, got the first pole in Milwaukee. You know, he's just done such a great job. In the last 13 events since Talladega, 9 top 10 finishes, and all the way up from 7th to 3rd in the point standings behind Clint Boyer and Carl Edwards. Back with more from Watkins Glen in a moment. We will go racing on Sunday, 1 o'clock Eastern time for the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series. Just 5 races remain until the chase begins. Remember, Jeff Gordon is the all-time winningest road racer in NASCAR with 9 wins. Tony Stewart's won 4 of the last 6 Watkins Glen events. Neither one of those drivers have won yet in 2008. Believe that, folks. Who's going to get it on Sunday? 1 o'clock Eastern time. Our coverage begins with NASCAR Countdown. Alan Beswick, Brad Doherty, and Rusty Wallace, and then 90 laps of road racing NASCAR style here at historic Watkins Glen International.
You know, qualifying was rained out for this event, but you know that 4 out of the last 5 qualifying sessions have been rained out here. 4 out of 5 years.
Those are some of my best ones, I remember.
Yeah, but you actually did sit on the pole here one time. I remember that.
As amazing as it was. Sam Hornish has had an interesting day here. He's been off the track a couple of times. He's 13th fastest, but he's finding the limits out there, I think, of each of these corners.
You can't fault him for not being aggressive. I remember the great Buddy Baker line. Buddy Baker, one of the all-time great super speedway drivers, but Buddy said he wasn't very good on the road courses. He said he went to Riverside 4 years before he ever realized that place was paved. He said, I was never on the racetrack.
Parts he ran on were not paved.
Yeah. Let's check in with Jamie Little.
Well, Doc, we're talking about, pitting on the opposite side here at the Watkins Glen. So all the crew members have to adjust, including where they fuel. This is the normal side, obviously, on the left side of the car. But here at the Glen, they have to fuel it on the right side. So the guys walking around just kind of getting comfortable with doing things on the opposite side. Just a couple of the adjustments we have to watch for during the race tomorrow night, and then, of course, Sunday on the Cup race. Shannon?
Yeah, Jamie, we've been talking a lot about brakes down here, especially at these road course races. I want to show you an example of just how much work these brakes are doing. You could see Mike Wallace's car here, the rear tire, nice chrome rim. And then if you look at his front tire here, you can see how much brake dust has been built up on that tire. So these guys are really working these brakes out there on the track.
Lots of brake dust down there, and the whole car gets a workout here. I guess if you better use those brakes, I guess you better. But DJ, how aggressive do you have to be? I guess turn one is where it really pays off to make sure you don't make a mistake there with the brakes.
Yeah, I mean you have to get into that corner extremely hard, but just like up the backstretch, going in the inner loop, that's another hard braking point on this racetrack, and you really have to work hard on the balance of your brake. That's the most important thing. That talking to these road racers like Ron Fellows and Boris said, we were up here testing a number of years ago. Those guys were just so good, and so I got out watching them and everything, and noticing they could go to places that I couldn't go, and they really worked hard on their brake balance. They said sometimes you feel like if you dial that rear brake in, it's going to make you spin out, but actually it helps you to get the whole car slowed down more, and it really doesn't upset the car. As we see Dario Franchitti, who's gone up to 4th fastest here now, who's a great road racer, obviously, but it's a matter of getting those, Mike Wallace's car that we just saw would rather have some of that, a little less brake dust on the front, and you're not really going to get any in the rear, but take away some of that and put some of that brake to the rear. So that's the most important thing that you can do, and being able to adjust that during the race.
How does wheel hopping take place? We saw in last year in the final laps Jeff Gordon do something he rarely does. He made a mistake or got a wheel hop going into turn one and got off the track, and Tony Stewart got the win. How does that happen?
Well, it can come from a couple of different things. It can come from too much rear brake by driving down in the corner too far and having to get on the brakes, and then that just starts those rear tires to coming off the ground literally. Or it can happen from downshifting and not matching your revs. So he might have got in there too far when he went to downshift. That causes the rear tires. He had too much RPM there for the rear tires to take that, and it starts hopping those rear tires. And unfortunately, I'm with Jeff, all too familiar with that happening down there. But it's very easy for it to happen, and you just can't get those revs matched all the time, or you just get in there too hard. You have to obviously drive these cars to the limit, and he was trying to win the race.
And it can happen to anybody. The winningest road course racer in NASCAR, Jeff Gordon, has that. I mean, a rare situation happened.
I was shocked. I was watching that. I could not believe I saw
was Tony in
Jeff
Mickey Lane.
Gordon drive off the racetrack. But it just shows you how close to the edge these guys run. And I think it's a little bit of the new car dynamic. I think this new car has a little different feel. It uses the brakes differently. There's points that they hadn't really kind of found out where the limit was, and I think Jeff found out last year where the limit is with this car, at least getting into turn one.
Yeah, and a word that you just used there, Andy, was shocked, and shocks can play a big part of that too. If you don't get that exactly right, that can create a problem too.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of different things you can do with shocks that can help that wheel hop situation. But the road course racing, we see David Reagan right here. He's 29th. He's struggling a little bit here, but road course racing is very, very hard on equipment. Everything, the drive shaft, the transmission, the engine. I mean, you guys can over rev these things, downshifting, the brakes. You see them running off the racetrack on the suspension part. Everything about road racing is hard on equipment, and I think that's one thing that makes a good road racer, to be able to get a car to the finish and still have enough there to race with.
Getting to the finish important for these drivers here in this practice. There's about 20 minutes remaining in this session, and we are being told the rain is approximately a half an hour away.
So what you're saying is we're going to miss it. We're not going to get to run in it.
See David Reagan here. This is an important weekend. I think both days is an important weekend. He obviously is up in the top 5 of the points in the Nationwide Series, but he's just right outside the top 12 in the Cup Series. And I know he's pointing to this and has said it a couple of times. If he can get through this weekend, it's a big weekend for him in his opportunities to make the chase and obviously to stay in the top 5 of the points in the Nationwide Series.
David is 5th overall and finished 21st here in the NASCAR Nationwide Series race. His first trip here to Watkins Glen a year ago, driving the Nationwide car. Let me correct, by the way, the rain is a half a mile away, so the rain is actually moving in closer. These guys know they don't have a lot of time. Less than 20 minutes now in this session of practice. Mad Max Pappas back on the racetrack, 2nd in the speed charts. Only behind the 29 car of Jeff Burton.
Said he needed some more rear spring to help the car turn and maybe a track bar adjustment. We'll see if it helped him any.
He looked in that back straightaway. You can see just a moment ago how dark the sky is getting, and these drivers obviously can see it, and the spotters can, and NASCAR watching the radar as well, trying to make sure that they would slow these guys down before the rain would hit any portion of this course.
Yeah, that corner that you can see Max coming out of right there would be a really important place too. You can put some rear spring in your car that might help you up through the S's, but you have to make sure that it didn't hurt you on the exit of that right-hand corner.
Yeah, we watched his foot cam through that corner a while ago, and he was just barely able to get the throttle down. He could just push it about halfway down through that corner. So he was looking for rear grip. Now he's looking for a little bit of clean racetrack, and he's getting that right here by passing this car down in the corner.
He was quicker, but still not quick enough to eclipse Jeff Burton as the fastest car.
He's got a little clear racetrack now. He had some traffic to deal with that lap before. If he can make this a clean lap, he might be able to move to the top.
Putting more rear spring right there, you can see the front end of the car really want to pick up. So by putting that rear spring in there, that's going to help keep some pressure on those front tires and give him a little bit better feel, and hopefully let him carry more speed up through the S's as he goes up the backstretch into the inner loop here.
That's nice and smooth through the inner loop. This is textbook.
Yeah, coming out of there. He doesn't arc the car down into this part quite as much. He drives it straighter, but that's a good thing for what he's trying to fix with his race car with the rear springs.
It's always a tricky corner right here, the left hand. This is really the only significant left-hand turn on this racetrack. And if you've really got your car set up for the rights, you can struggle a little bit through this corner.
He would need to pick up 11/100ths of a second to tie Jeff Burton or to go past him on the speed charts.
Saying he's going to pick up about 2/10 right here.
He comes by. There's the start-finish line right there, and we'll see what he can do.
Didn't do it. Actually slower.
14, 18. Go ahead and bring it in.
Dario Franchitti, by the way, has already gone back to the garage area. Pretty good effort. He is 4th overall. Shannon.
Yeah, Doc, of course, that was his qualifying lap on that 4th overall. Been a couple weeks since you've been in this car. How does it feel to get back in, kind of getting all those cobwebs off?
Yeah, it felt good. Felt good. Actually, the Fastenal Dodge was quicker than that, but we got traffic on the last corner, so I'm pretty happy with it. We tested at Road Atlanta. I came back from Scotland for a day just to do a test at Road Atlanta, and the car felt really good. So the guys have done a good job. Built this car specifically for here, so hopefully we'll do a good job tomorrow.
So when we do get into the race tomorrow, what are you expecting from the race as far as the performance of this team?
I don't know. I mean, they did a great job again last week. Had some problems with the windshield wiper and stuff, but they've taken a lot of stuff from our Grand Am program now and put that in there. So if it rains, I think we'll be okay, and if it's dry, we're looking good too.
What are your future plans, Dario, moving forward past the races that you've already dedicated to doing this 40 team?
I don't know right now. That was the first thing to decide what the program is going to look like for the rest of the year, and we might do some other stuff as well, but right now it looks like the 7 nationwide races, and then we'll see from there.
All right, and Dario Franchitti, you guys heard him say he was in Scotland. I think we're a little bit jealous, aren't we?
Well, Shannon, it's raining almost today as much as it does in Scotland. Okay, a little while ago I talked to Boris Said. He said that he was looking around and may have had an offer to run Cup on Sunday. Well, he just confirmed to me that the 45 for Kyle Petty has been offered to him. Now, he hasn't asked permission from Ford, and he said that he respects them a lot. They've been there for him. He has to get okay. But if it is okay, then Boris Said we'll be in the 45 for Sunday's Cup race. Doc?
Jamie, Kyle Petty, and that whole organization looking at the good of the whole. The whole team. They had Terry Labonte in the car. They've had Chad McCumbee. A lot of speculation that they're looking at some other veteran drivers to hire full-time in 2009. And if Kyle Petty steps out of that car as a former winner at this racetrack, won it here in '92, to put Morris said, it'll be a very unselfish move on Kyle's part to try to help the team as a whole. And we'll follow that opportunity. We'll see what happens for Morris said. Kevin Harvick atop the speed charts here as the minutes wind down here in the NASCAR Nationwide practice. Back at Watkins Glen International Raceway here, NASCAR Nationwide Series cars continuing practice, and the minutes are clicking away. And guys starting to push the envelope a little bit, even getting some damage on the front of the 22 car of Ryan Newman. Newman climbed out of the car and doesn't seem to be like he's the happiest guy in the world. Going to go over and have a little discussion with the driver he had contact with, Brad Keselowski.
Yeah, a little pushing and shoving going on there. I think they just didn't quite figure whose fault it was right there. I don't know if it was just a racing deal. They were racing pretty hard out there.
And they're laughing, they're smiling. I'm sure just a little communication here. Let's show you what happened coming down to turn 10. The left-hander turns in and going into turn 11. Here's turn 10.
Ryan Newman put some pressure on Brad Keselowski trying to get by. Makes a pretty good corner here through the left-hander and is going to try to set Brad up for this turn, a right-hander. And right here is where they just get together.
Yeah, it looks like maybe Brad, I don't think that Brad did anything that Ryan wasn't expecting. He just got on the brakes maybe a little bit soon, and that caused Ryan to have to get on the brakes. He was going to try to set him up and go to the inside, but looked like Brad had to get on the brakes a little bit sooner. So they were both laughing about it. Looks like everything's okay. Shannon?
Yeah, well, you can see that yellow stripe on the back of Brad Keselowski's car. I know you didn't like those rookie stripes on the back of there, Brad, but this was one way to deal with it. So what did Ryan say to you when he came over here?
I guess he was on a qualifying run or something. I don't know. It's a big track, huge place. You know, we really don't need to be running into each other in practice, but I mean, I'm sure he didn't mean to do it because it tears up his car too. But you know, it's a shame. This whole Navy crew's worked hard, and this is the best I've been running on a road course, so I'm proud of them for that. And you know, we'll get it fixed, but it could have been a lot worse. And last thing we need to do is take out a backup car before we start a race. You know, when we're trying to go for a championship.
Did you feel the handling of the car change at all after the contact?
Oh yeah, I mean, lifted rear tires off the ground. It wheel hopped it pretty good, so I'm sure we'll have to go through the transmission and drivetrain and make sure it didn't break anything. It's unfortunate.
All right, Jamie, as the rain starts to come down, over to Jamie.
Look at the size of Ryan Newman. He's like 2 of Brad Keselowski. What were you actually going to do when you walked over there to Brad, Ryan?
No, I just apologized. I was on a qualifying run. I didn't know what he was doing as far as qualifying a race, and I got a run on the inside of him coming off of 10 where he got loose. I thought he was either going to come in or just let me have the high side, and next thing I knew, he came across my nose, and I accidentally almost turned him around, but I just told him I apologized, and he was dejected. He came out better end of the deal. I got to straighten out one bar. We got to put a radiator in and everything else, but Supercuts Dodge obviously was faster than I was at that point, and we'll work on it for tomorrow.
And he said Supercuts Dodge, first time he's been in this car all year, and actually Ryan is the one that made the call. He decided he wanted to run here, Doc, and get a few extra laps, and in order to keep with the Dodge theme, he's in the 22 car this weekend.
Ryan Newman, former winner here. Speaking of other Hendrick Motorsports, JR Motorsports drivers, this is Landon Castle driving a car out of James Finch's shop this weekend. Watch the 4 car.
Oh, this is not what you want to do right here. Gets in there just too hot. He locks up that brake. Oh, gets in the tire wall. That's
Yeah, I believe the track might have been a little bit wet right here as he tried to get down in. And it's just not stopping. He's got the brakes on, the wheels turned, but it's not making any smoke right there. So that
not
track
doing
is
anything.
Obviously pretty wet down there.
Remember Jimmy Johnson years ago to hit it in the very same position? It was a different track back then in terms of watch the 92 car go off the track into the gravel and watch, oh my goodness, head on into the wall.
Still hurts.
Good news was Jimmy Johnson able to climb out and wave to the crowd. Landon Castle and Jimmy Johnson were talking about, I guess, the youngster getting some pointers from the veteran out of the Hendrick stable. And now Landon ends up over there into the tire barrier. A wet racetrack here, and apparently this session is over because the rains have moved back in while they try to move the 4 car out of the tires. Back at Watkins Glen International Raceway here, NASCAR Nationwide practice has come to a conclusion. Kevin Harvick at the top of the speed charts. Jeff Burton, his teammate. The way they finished here a year ago was Harvick first and Burton second. Max Pappas third overall. Dario Franchitti getting back in the car. Impressive run in the Fastenal Dodge. Fourth quickest, Jimmy Johnson. A rare appearance in the NASCAR Nationwide Series. Marcus Ambrose, Boris Said, Wallace Boyer, and Robbie Gordon in the top 10. Let's go down and visit with Marcus Ambrose. Here's Shannon.
Yeah, Doc, how close has Marcos Ambrose been to going to victory lane in the Nationwide Series on road courses this season? And you are racing in the Cup race as well. Could it be the sweep for you this weekend?
Who knows? Yeah, we had a tough session there. We just didn't quite hit the setup that we wanted to. So, it was a little frustrating, but I'm pleased it rained to wipe out that Cup qualifying, and I'm pleased to dry it up so I get my Nationwide car some practice time. So today's really been a great day, all things considered.
All right, and always a smile on Marcos Ambrose's face. Jamie?
Well, Brad Coleman may be a rookie over here, but on road courses, he certainly doesn't perform like one. Finished 5th last year, but this week, Brad, 2 days ago, big news. We're actually going to see you in a Cup car next weekend. How'd that come about?
Yeah, it's really exciting. I got a call Wednesday morning saying I'd be in the 96 car for DLP and Toyota at Michigan, so very excited about that. Of course, I jumped all over it. Just excited about the rest of the season with those guys. Going to run a lot of races, and they're good guys. I've done a lot of tests with them, so I'm used to the crew, and just really excited about doing it. But we've also got a special deal going on this weekend with lupus. We've got lifewithoutLupus.org. You go check it out. We're helping out their foundation and just trying to help them out here and put them on the car.
All right, and they ran 20th in practice, Doc, but I expect big things from Brad Coleman in tomorrow's race.
Tomorrow's race action, well, we got a busy day at Watkins Glen, beginning with NASCAR Nationwide Series qualifying on ESPN2, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. NASCAR Sprint Cup Happy Hour. The only time the Sprint Cup cars will have been on the track all weekend until race day at 1:30. And then on ABC at 2:30 Eastern Time, NASCAR Nationwide Series action. And, of course, we will finish it up 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Live flag-to-flag coverage, starting with NASCAR Countdown. Alan Bestwick, Brad Daugherty, and Rusty Wallace will kick it off for our NASCAR Sprint Cup Series race on ESPN. Here's how we'll line up. Remember, NASCAR Sprint Cup qualifying was rained out. They line up by points. Kyle Busch, Dale Earnhardt, row 1. Jeff Gordon still looking for win number 1 outside of row 3. And, of course, Tony Stewart, 3 wins in the last 4 trips here inside of row 5.
Yeah, guys that are going to really need a good day for Kevin Harvick and Clint Boyer sitting right there on the cutoff line as far as the chase goes.
Juan Pablo Montoya will be our in-race reporter. We'll visit with the driver who won at Infineon a year ago. See if he can get it done here at Watkins Glen. Didn't have much of a chance after last year with the incident with Kevin Harvick. Robbie Gordon, watch for him to come from the back of the pack, and Ron Fellows.
You'll also see a lot of these ringers. You see P.J. Jones, Patrick Carpentier starting at the back. These are road course specialists. Max Pappas, Marcus Ambrose starting in the back. It's going to be fun to watch.
And will Kyle Petty put Boris Said in the car? That's maybe brewing in the garage area. A lot of discussions now ongoing. Richard Childress, Clint Boyer, Mike Dillon, that are talking about what's going to happen in the Nationwide Series action tomorrow. Coming up next, Dale Jr.'s Shifting Gears. For Andy Petrie, Dale Jarrett, and our entire ESPN crew, I'm Jerry Punch, once again inviting you to join us tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Time for live coverage of the NASCAR Nationwide Series qualifying. It is a busy day here at Watkins Glen International. Hope you'll join us beginning tomorrow with Nationwide qualifying. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. Once again, Kevin Harvick atop the speed chart.